Welcome back. California residents are pissed off at Gavin Newsom because he boycott against fleeing Chevron gas stations. Well, y'all people voted for him. Y'all gotta deal with his stupidity now. But let's get back into the video. Let's go ahead and get into the video. And hopefully, all these videos I'm showing y'all, all the other stations showing y'all what's going on with the Democrats. Y'all do not vote for Democrats no more. Vote for Republicans if you want fucking change. Let's get into the video, shall we?
Chevron says it's going to move its headquarters from Northern California to Texas as the oil company reports dismal second quarter earnings. Chevron says the move is not political, but recently protested new California oil regulations. The company's been based in California since the year 1879, but says it will soon move its headquarters from San Ramon to Houston. Chevron's earnings report today missed analysts' expectations. The company blames the shortfall on lower refining margins and delays in acquiring another oil company.
1 year later, Governor Newsom is declaring war on Chevron, telling drivers to avoid filling up at the gas stations this Memorial Day weekend. The governor warning the oil brand is driving up prices at the pump.
KTLA's Chris Wolf is live in Studio City with details on the feud. Chris.
Micah and Cher, Governor Newsom is taking on Chevron Gas just ahead of Memorial Day weekend, one of the busiest travel periods of the year. So just what is behind this war of words?
It's forcing us to use less, go less places, and just kind of hunker down. Blaming is implying that the thing is you have to find one person to blame. It's a whole system. And the system has many moving parts.
I don't know if prices ever really come down though, do they? I think they set a new normal and then they go up from there.
The gas prices are high and it is bad.
The average price of gas in California was $6.14 per gallon of regular on Thursday, about $1.58 higher than the national average, according to AAA.
So,
we got to talk about a war that has broken out in California, led by Gavin Newsom, between the state and Chevron. As Chevron is currently evacuating the state for the same reason that any smart business is leaving California, is because they don't have a very good business environment. Okay, Democrats are making it very, very, very tough to do business in their states. They're driving businesses away, especially with their woke Green New Deal policies, right? The Green New Scam policies that are specifically driving oil companies like Chevron away from the state. And now this is boiled over into a conflict where you have Newsom urging California residents to boycott Chevron because he's upset that, in his opinion, they're charging too much for gas. Okay, even though a lot of the price of gas in California has to do with the policies of Democrats, right? When you talk about having excessive gas taxes, right? You're talking about an extra 60 cents per gallon simply from taxes. When you talk about the excessive regulation, yeah, that is the reason why California's gas prices are so high compared to the rest of the country. But if you ask Gavin Newsom, no, it's because of the greedy oil companies, right? It's their fault, right? They're making too much profit. So I want to talk about it because, again, they're calling for a full-blown boycott of Chevron. And I just don't think that this is going to work out well for Democrats. It never works out, right? It never works out for politicians to openly call to boycott major companies in their state. I mean, look no further than what happened in Seattle, Washington. The woke mayor, the socialist mayor, Keith Wilson, basically told businesses to leave, right? They can go, okay? And she called to boycott Starbucks. She actually led the boycott against Starbucks. And on the whole, Starbucks decided to open up a new headquarters in Tennessee, but we already know what that actually really means, right? They're actually moving their headquarters. They're just doing it gradually, right? They're not doing it all at one time, but they're certainly moving a lot of jobs out of Seattle, Washington, to Tennessee due to the unfriendly business environment that has been created by the socialist Democrats. And a similar thing is happening out in California between Gavin Newsom and Chevron. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
So we're heading into the heart of the Memorial Day travel rush with millions of Californians hitting the road. And Governor Newsom is seizing on the historic spike in gas prices to call out one of the world's largest oil companies. So the governor claims Chevron is gouging customers during the Iran war. While at stations all across the Bay Area, Chevron is laying the blame on state policies. Our Kenny Choi breaks down the latest chapter in this years-long feud.
Californians are paying some of the highest gas prices in the country. The blame game over who's responsible is ramping up between Newsom and Chevron. Soaring prices as drivers fuel up at the pump. The governor urging Californians not to fill up at Chevron stations over Memorial Day weekend. On X, Newsom posted, "Pro tip, unbranded gas comes from the same refineries, storage tanks, and pipelines, and it meets the same state standards to keep your engine running clean." It's a message that has drivers like Margarita Martinez rethinking where she shops for gas.
We don't know.
That's what they do.
96. I need to learn more about my gas. And I need to save my money too.
Chevron has been posting.
Well, you should change your vote, right? Let's keep it 100. If California residents are concerned about the price of gas being so high right now, okay, they should reconsider who they vote for at the state level. Because when you talk about the price of gas in California compared to the rest of the country, yeah, the reason why it's elevated in California is because of the policies of Democrats, right? So if you are truly concerned about the price of gas, if you live in a blue state that has higher than average gas prices, then you should probably, again, consider who you're voting for, okay?
Signs like this at hundreds of stations across the state, saying California politicians are choosing foreign oil and fuels over local jobs and lower costs. The feud between Big Oil and Newsom escalating for years. In 2023, the governor announced California's landmark lawsuit against major oil companies over alleged climate deception, attributing hotter heat waves, more intense droughts, and tying devastating wildfires like Paradise to Big Oil.
It's incalculable in terms of the dollars, the lives lost, the funerals, the dead bodies in Paradise, California. People whose lives have been cut short because of health risks.
That same year, Newsom signed a law that would penalize oil companies for excess profits. Then in 2024, Chevron responded, relocating its San Ramon headquarters to Texas, blaming the state's high operating costs and criticizing Sacramento's energy and climate policies. The move ended the company's long history in California, dating back to its founding 145 years earlier.
Kind of crazy. I don't know how we're going to keep the economy going like this.
Consumer Watchdog, a California consumer advocacy group, says Chevron is taking massive profits to the bank, posting higher profits since the start of the war in Iran.
We know this from the state reports. In March, they made $1.11 off every gallon of gas they came out of the refinery. And then they're making more on their retail stations because they control the price at their retail stations.
As for the governor's advice to avoid branded stations,
their retail stations are charging much more than the Costco's. So when you're paying like $1 more for the same gas at Chevron than you're paying at Costco, you know these major brands are making an awful lot of money, but in particular Chevron.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. You know, it's so funny to me how these socialist-minded individuals who are economically illiterate, they try to appeal to the public with ignorance. It's very annoying because the average person listening to that will say, well, why is Chevron making excessive profits? Why are they making more money per gallon than Costco? Right? That's what some individuals think, to be honest with you. And it's like, well, they're making the profits that they're making, right? They're able to charge the premium that they're charging because of capitalism, right? That is how capitalism works, okay? So I want you guys to understand the argument from the Democrats. The argument from the Democrats is that, well, Chevron is in the wrong because they're charging a premium over what the local gas stations that are not Chevron owned are charging, right? So you talk about independent operators, individuals who don't necessarily have brand name fuel, right? But they all meet California standards, okay? Chevron is able to charge a premium for a couple reasons. One, because technically the gas that Chevron sells has proprietary additives in the fuel, okay, that they use in order to justify the premium. Now, whether or not you believe that, that's up to the consumer, right? That is up to the consumer. It is up to the consumer to decide whether or not the premium that Chevron is charging for their fuel is worth it, right? Now, also on top of that, you have Chevron gas stations and stores that have great locations. So you're also talking about paying a premium for the location. Also on top of that, Chevron has what we call brand equity, right? It's a brand that's been around for a long time. It's a premium brand, and this is normal in capitalism where consumers will pay a little bit more for name brand stuff rather than the generic brand. We see this all the time in grocery stores, right? One of the most competitive places to sell a product, right? We see this all the time. Generic grocery store brand rice or milk or, you know, whatever product, soda, is almost always going to cost less than the premium name brand stuff, right? Even if it is the quote unquote same or very similar, right? The brand equity that these companies build up over time gives them the ability to charge more. And it's up to consumers in regards to whether or not they believe that the brand premium is worth it. Again, we see this in grocery stores all the time. Consumers have a choice. Same thing with the gas station. Chevron is basically saying, look, our fuel meets the standards that California has set, but it's actually a little bit better for X, Y, and Z reasons, and it's up to consumers to decide whether or not that premium is worth it. But Democrats are stepping in and saying, no, you can't do that, right? You have to limit your profits. Basically, you're talking about price control, which we know almost always results in the opposite of what these people intend, right? It always results in less supply and higher prices over time, right? Just like rent control, right? All the price controls that Democrats love to try, their socialist comrades, they love, it never results in lower prices, never. Because what you're doing when you try to do price controls is that you're basically making it harder for these companies to turn a profit, which makes it harder for them to supply the goods and services that they're trying to supply to consumers. So the only thing that's going to happen in California is what has already happened, which is that these oil companies are going to continue to leave. And moves like this from Gavin Newsom is just going to make that acceleration go faster, right? And then gas prices are going to continue to go up. And it's going to continue to be much higher than the national average. But again, this is what Democrats want, because they want to force people to buy electric vehicles, to buy into the Green New scam, to take public transportation. They want to force their residents into that, and then they turn around and pretend like they care about gas prices when their policies are responsible for gas being so high in California compared to the rest of the country. Now, Gavin Newsom will try to blame it on Iran. He'll try to blame it on everything else except the fact that ultimately, when you compare California's price of gas to the rest of the country on average, okay, California is more expensive than almost everywhere else in the country because of Democrat policies, period.
Meanwhile, Californians are paying the highest gas tax in the country, about 70 cents per gallon, according to the state's Energy Commission.
Yeah.
Newsom points the finger in the other direction, adding on X, Big Oil is already making billions off Trump's Iran war. Don't let them rip you off even more by overpaying for the brand name. Chevron says it's the policymakers who are to blame for higher prices because of the closure of 18% of the state's refining capacity in less than a year. Spokesperson Ross Allen sent us a statement saying Chevron works hard to educate Californians about the negative consequences of Sacramento's energy and tax policies, adding, we urge Sacramento to take energy policy seriously and stop making life expensive for California drivers. Consumer Watchdog recommends drivers shop around, saying that the fuel you pay for at stations like Chevron are essentially the same as the gas you pay for at unbranded stations.
Well, again, that's not technically true, right? Technically, it's not the same. They all meet California standards, but again, Chevron, their whole thing is, okay, we're a premium brand. right? You're buying our premium gasoline. Now, whether or not you believe that is that much better to justify the premium, again, that is up to the consumer, right? That is what the free market is for. That's what the free market is for. Democrats are trying to get in the way of that for their own political gain. And that is resulting in these companies leaving the state, and then they turn around and they want to point the finger at everybody else except the politicians who are responsible for the policies that are driving these businesses out of the state. So hey, I encourage Chevron to do what all the other oil companies are doing and move to Texas, right? Move to the South, move to a red state. You don't have to do business in California. Don't be where you're not wanted, right? They basically believe that these oil companies are evil, right? They're evil. They're profiteers. Okay, they're destroying the planet. They're killing people. Okay, cool. Well, I think that all the oil companies should leave, right? Just leave. Just leave, and you know, California residents will be stuck paying the bill, right? Paying the price for the policies of the Democrat Party, and maybe, just maybe, they'll change their vote, right? Maybe, just maybe. They will start voting Republican, right? They will start voting for the Democrats, the politicians that are primarily responsible for the cost of living being so high in these blue states. But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.